1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome into another episode of the Talkin G-MAC podcast. I'm your host, Katie Gilhooly, and it's hard to believe it, but we have already kicked off winter sports. We're in that crossover season where we're getting ready to finish up fall sports. They're heading into championships, heading into postseason play, but men's and women's basketball and wrestling and some of our winter sports are kicking off. So really excited to have this next guest on the podcast, head men's basketball coach at Kentucky Wesleyan, Drew Cooper. Coach, thanks so much for taking some time to chat with us this afternoon.
My pleasure. Long time, first time, as they say.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's get right into it. Preseason coaches poll number one. You guys were able to win the regular season last year. Ultimately fell in the conference tournament, but did make able to make the regional tournament as well. So talk about this team. I know maybe the start of the season over the last week didn't get off on the right foot maybe, but what did you learn over those first two games, and what can people expect from the Panthers this year?
Yeah, it's the nature of the beast. The gauntlet is thrown down immediately in Division II with these crossovers, and they're really tough basketball games nationwide at different levels. And then I think even in Division II, kind of the week after, you're still processing what happened the previous weekend, and I think a lot of us schedule some teams that maybe we can hopefully keep morale up and learn while winning. And I know in Division One, so there are a lot of levels of Division One that take that same approach. That you play teams that you should be able to be successful with, and also experiment with some things, but not these crossovers make it so difficult. And you're right. I mean, we dropped two heartbreaking games against two good teams on the road, and so it was just an excruciating road trip, and so we're going to try to put that behind us and prepare for the conference and what's going to be a really good GMAC.
Yeah, you mentioned that weekend, an overtime loss to UIndy, and a bare loss with 3 points to Lincoln. What can you take away from those? What can this team take away from those losses? I know they were close. I know you mentioned heartbreaking, just a heartbreaking way to start the season. But what was the conversation like on the way home, since you've gotten home, as you get ready to hopefully get things kind of what we want to call back on track?
Within our basketball team, we're going to need to be better defensively. So that's really our emphasis right now, and that's 110% my fault. You spend September and October making sure your team is ready to attack on the offensive side, and then obviously, once October 4th came and you have those 25 practices, and you start up quote unquote full time, you pound away on the defensive side of things, and we kind of have our priorities mixed up a little bit. So that's kind of a huge emphasis for us right now, is making sure our personality and our we're defining ourselves on the defensive side of the floor the way we need to be. But away from the locker room and away from the practice floor, I am encouraged by what we're seeing in Fatih Huick and Terrence Ringo. That tandem looks to be up to the challenge to kind of help us by committee replace Borja Fernandez. And I'm optimistic that we're going to get Quentin Tolles in a position that he's thinking less about our fundamentals and just playing. I think sometimes that takes time, and so those are you always have question marks about your newcomers, and kind of you want to see with your own eyes that they can help you when the lights come on. And I'm very, very encouraged by what I see out of our roster from that standpoint.
You mentioned a bit of a morale boost per se. This week you've got a couple of games. You're at home, um, and then you make a trip to Mississippi. Talk about what the emphasis is this week, and what you guys have kind of talked about. I know you mentioned defense, but just with these next two opponents, we get into Thanksgiving, and then things kind of get rolling, and it's already the first of the year, and you're in GMAC play. So what can the Panthers do heading into that part of the season to get things going?
Get everybody playing their best basketball. We didn't have everybody really within our rotation playing their best. So I think this is a big week for us, and we're not. But by the way, we're not approaching, our game versus Simmons this week as a morale booster at all. They're a very athletic, talented team that can cause a lot of problems, and we need to show up and do the things that I'm talking about in regards to defending and keeping guys in front of us in order to get a victory. And then we're going down to Delta State for just another tough road game. I mean, our out of conference road games scheduling was difficult at Indianapolis and at Lincoln for the crossover, at Illinois Springfield, which is, I believe, GLVC preseason number 2 later in December. And on Sunday, we are at Delta State. That is a very talented, athletic team. We have King University coming to the Sports Center here in Owensboro. Of our 5 D2 out of conference games, 4 of them are on the road and just against very established, veteran, capable programs. We got to just keep preparing ourselves for the conference. Folks that are familiar with the regional rankings, and certainly in Owensboro and the Kentucky Wesleyan, with our history and are familiar with how the NCAA tournament works and the out of conference matchups and the regional ranking, all that stuff. And it's not, we're not even thinking about that right now. We're trying to finally fine tune our program and get ready for Lake Erie in that first week of December. GMAC play is right around the corner. And like I said, it's going to be a very, very good league. Everybody looks like they got some new players and returners. It's just going to be a grind, as it always is.
You name dropped a couple of the guys that you really wanted to see kind of find their groove. Talk about this Kentucky Wesleyan team. I know you guys found some success last year. Anyone that's familiar with Division II basketball knows Kentucky Wesleyan, and the ebbs and flows and the history that you guys have on the basketball court. But seeing some success last year after maybe missing the GMAC tournament in prior years, how can you build off that? And then, what is it about this team that you think can take you guys to maybe a new level and maybe a conference championship?
Well, we have a good balance of returners and newcomers. Of our 16, 10 of our guys were on the team last year. And that can be, a bit overwhelming in this day and age for the newcomers, because our newcomers are perfectly capable, talented, athletic to be able to come in and make an impact, and they are doing that. And I think one of the benefits that we had last year is we had a program that really, really believed in our fundamentals, and not just assimilating the new guys into those fundamentals, but doing so in kind of in a compassionate, understanding way with so many voices and so many veterans. Those are kind of some of the things that we were battling throughout the preseason and still today. But I am confident that once kind of it simmers down and the newcomers take on that belief, and the returners kind of not welcome that, but accept that, and that we're gonna hit our stride. You talk about the forming, storming, norming, and performing. I talk about that every year. I think with every basketball team, you can almost pinpoint a date to where you go from the forming to the storming to the norming to the performing. And right now we're storming, and I hope to get to the norming stage before Lake Erie comes in here on December 3rd.
Yeah, and I think I asked all of our coaches, no matter what the sport, how important that first part of the season is before you get into conference play. Conference play is obviously the meat and potatoes of the schedule, and everyone's first kind of checkbox is, can we put ourselves in a position to win a conference championship? And a lot of that starts with that conference play, and it's important. Every GMAC game is important. What what is it about the first part of the season, and maybe getting into a little bit of your coaching philosophy, Coach Cooper, if you don't mind, but what is it about that first part, and what is so important about the first part to really prepare yourself for that December 3rd game against Lake Erie, so that you put yourself in the best position to start the GMAC play 1-0?
Well, I don't think anyone right now in this moment really knows how good they are. I'll say that. And everybody says anything can happen in March and anything can happen in November, because when teams don't know how good they are, you can have a team that wins 6 games during the course of a season and not be a good basketball team, show up in November and not know that yet. They don't know that they're going to struggle. They still are as confident and as enthusiastic about taking on the season as a team that might win 22 games. So consequently, that matchup is going to be much more interesting, because the team that might be down on themselves in a month or two is talented. Somebody goes nuts and hits some shots. That there are always games during that crossover weekend that you can look back at in February and March, and you wonder, like, man, how did that team beat that team? And it's like very simple. They got a really, really, really talented roster. Nobody had really normed and performed. Nobody had really meshed at that point with anyone in the nation. Rotations change, injuries occur. So there's a million and one things that can happen during the first part of the season that is yet to come about. So I think that's always an interesting dynamic.
Well, when we talk about the GMAC and we talk about men's basketball, even on the women's side, every coach I talk to, everyone that we've had previous guests on the podcast to talk about the season, they always talk about what a grind it is to get through the GMAC and how many good teams there are. And I think it was evident in the way that our regular season and conference championship and how many teams we were able to get in the Midwest region last year, that there's some really talented basketball in the Great Midwest. What is it like playing day in and day out, and how do you prepare your guys for a GMAC schedule each year?
You just have to have a program that accepts that each game is going to come down to a possession or two, and it's every single game. And this past weekend for us in the crossover, it just reaffirms that you can't miss blockouts. You can't turn the ball over. You can't do that with 16 minutes to go in the first half, because you know that 36 minutes later that you're going to be in a situation where you need that possession. So trying to just get young men that have been through the high school ranks where it's not like that have been through the AAU ranks where it's not like that watch the NBA where it's not like that see high major college basketball where, the Duke University beats, a VMI or an ASUN or a lower level Division I by 36 points to get to 3-0 and 4-0. See, it's not like it there. Small college basketball, especially at this level, is one of the only levels where I would make the argument that it's like that. Like every single game, we all as an institution fight the same battles. We all have selling points, and we all have hurdles we're trying to work through. So it's just you said the word grind, and that's what it is.
Well, Coach, we surely appreciate your time today. We appreciated getting to hear more about the Panthers and are certainly excited to see what the season brings for you guys down in Owensboro. So best of luck this week, and hopefully we'll be catching up with you here soon.
Okay, thanks for having me. Have a good year.
Wanna hear you go.